All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with First and Pod. Danny Parkins, Andrew Fillipponi. As soon as we hit record, Pony said, "You want to hear a quick story?" And then the recording started. So I'm looking forward to that story, Pony. But how's it? How have you been? Everything good? Wife's good. I got no opening anecdote. Did you have a good Memorial Day weekend?
I hosted for Jim Rome. Is that your way of easing us into that conversation quickly?
Yeah, I wanted you to say it instead of me. You hosted
Yeah.
for Jim Rome. You were in the jungle. Let me say, Notre Dame should change their name to Pot because they always get smoked in bowls. Welcome to the jungle. Give me a vine. And when I say a vine, I mean a telephone line. Vinny Goodwill, you're a friend of the show. When I say friend of the show, I mean we'll have you back. Go on. Sorry. I love Jim Rome.
The only thing I really did, I had to, because I'm like, screw it. They'll probably never have me on to do this again.
No.
I did finish with a good night now. I could not help myself.
Hell yeah.
That I had to do.
So when you went to callers, you didn't say, here's a vine?
I did not. I didn't go. Well, hold on. Time out. Let me just tell you why. Because the calls we ended up taking were on Bill Walton. So saying here's a vine to talk about a man who just died, just didn't seem right to me in that moment.
Yeah, dude, like a grab a vine or here's a vine would be
me
legendary.
Giving the buzzer and hanging up on a guy and going,
not a good call. Very good call. Not a good call.
A breaking death in the sports world was not what I want to do. Okay, so here is the creative idea that we came up with as a group. This is completely original that we have for this podcast episode. The 11 best players in the NFL. First and Pod's 11 best players in the league. There are no positional requirements. We don't need X amount of offense and Y amount of defense. Just the 11 best players. And unless one of us leaves for an opportunity with another media conglomerate or Rome wants me to fly out to Calabasas and never do the show with you again and just always be his right-hand man, we'll update this list next year at this time. So 11 guys. I wrote down.
So we're gonna. So this is not start a franchise with. Contract doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter.
Potential, no. Just what they are right now.
These are the 11 best football players on planet Earth. And what we are going to do that's different than our other shows is we're going to try to come to a consensus. Like we're not going to. I go, you go, I go, you go.
If I said Kenny Pickett, you're not stuck with Pickett. It's not like he's.
We're going to try to come to an agreement here.
Yep.
Okay. So this is going to be fun because we're going to have to we're going to have to table some arguments, come back to it, see where we have space, where we have agreement, etc. Okay. Patrick Mahomes.
It's like the dude who nominated John Elway for the Hall of Fame and said his name and sat back down.
Correct.
That's all that's needed. We don't need to get into resume. We don't have to get into this throw or that play. We don't have to bring up any kind of numbers that's it. He's in. Okay. Absolutely.
Can I ask a follow-up question here before we say another?
Go ahead. You can tell that we did a lot of prep for this together.
No, but I like doing this. I think it's better this way. I think it's more organic, the exercise. How many quarterbacks are you prepared to have in this 11?
I have 3 names down as quarterbacks that I would want to discuss and debate in this.
Okay.
For this list.
So Josh Allen.
He has another one. That's not a slam dunk choice for me, though.
Okay, but it is for me. I think Josh Allen is the second best player in football. I think that the regular season numbers, and I know playoffs matter, and I know that playoffs should matter more, so I don't want to discount that part of it. But if you go back to 2020 through last year, 4-year sample, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes' numbers are virtually identical, And when you add in rushing, Allen actually has significantly more touchdowns than Mahomes. And the yards are basically equal. The win percentage is virtually identical. The games played is one different. Like, he's the closest thing to Mahomes, and he hasn't had Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. So I am very comfortable in saying that Josh Allen is one of the 11 best players in the NFL.
He's not better than at his job right now, coming off the season he had. He's not better at his job than Christian McCaffrey is as an NFL running back. If you want to discuss second best quarterback in the league, okay, but you said second best player. He's not better at quarterback than McCaffrey is at running back currently.
But I guess in this point, I am putting in something for positional value of like impact on winning.
Impact on winning. Look at what the 49ers have done since McCaffrey was traded there. Impact on winning. They've gone deeper in the playoffs than the Bills the last
But do you believe that if those two guys traded teams, that McCaffrey would impact winning in Buffalo more than Allen would impact winning in San Francisco?
No, because
quarterback matters more.
Okay, but yeah, but you could do that for like 10 quarterbacks, maybe 15. And then the entire list would just be the 11 best quarterbacks in the league and not the 11 best players.
No,
we'd have to change.
Yes. Well, that's why I started with like how many quarterbacks, because I agree, but there's some sort of, sometimes you make fun of me for the eye test thing. Like there is some sort of like common sense barometer that we're gonna get to once we're done with quarterbacks, where it's like, okay, these other guys, Justin Herbert might have more of an impact on a game than Christian McCaffrey, but no one would say that, and I love Herbert more than you do, that Herbert is a better all-around football player than Christian McCaffrey. But I do think the percentage of the offense that is Josh Allen, the similarity of statistics to Mahomes, the arm talent, the fact that he doesn't do it with a super team around him offensively, that he's done it with multiple coordinators and play callers. Like, he's on my list. He's on your list. I think that's a pretty good. I'm not saying he's, but because again, we're not ranking them, but like we have agreement on Allen.
I will grudgingly go along with him.
Wow.
I might want to revisit. Okay. I might want to revisit him.
Okay.
For another guy later on.
Well, then you nominate someone. Go ahead.
I was going to put Burrow ahead of him because I don't think Burrow, because of the nature of the position he plays, I don't think he should be penalized for getting hurt last year. I don't think that should be held against him because there's no reason to think that injury. At least I don't believe. Now, I'm not Dr. Chow. I could call him because he does return my calls and likes me a lot. The great football doc on Twitter or X. I don't think that there's real reason to believe that Burrow is going to have his play negatively affected this year because of the hand injury last season. So it was 35 touchdowns the year before, and he finished top 5 in MVP voting. They won 12 games. They went to the AFC Championship game. They played Kansas City close again on the road after beating them the year before. I like Burrow more than Allen for this.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've got disagreement because my third quarterback was Lamar. You're furrowing your brow at a 2-time MVP. I mean, the situation, I love Burrow, you know that, but having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is a factor here. And I'm not saying we have to only value last year, but I do think the most recent thing that we've seen should weigh a little bit more than everything else. And there is absolutely some question for a guy that had limited athleticism and limited arm strength. Like Burrow gets it done because of poise, his mind, all that's quick release. Like if he has lost 5% or 10% with that wrist injury, I don't love a guy who already was not a top 10 quarterback in terms of pure athleticism being less than 100%. So I love Burrow. The guy, like when he's healthy, the Bengals win. But I got to say, I am concerned about Joe Burrow this year until proven otherwise.
You gave me an argument about, if you traded places with guys, I would take Josh Allen over Christian McCaffrey, which was that was right out of your playbook from your debate club Illinois championship thing to try to move the goalposts and create a hypothetical argument that probably shouldn't even be relevant to this discussion. So I'm going to do the same thing to you. You would take Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow. You've got to win a game to advance and keep your season alive. And it's in a vacuum. You don't know who your coach is. You don't know who your receivers are. You don't know what your offense is. You're just picking the quarterback, and everything else will be selected at random. You would take Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow over Jackson for sure.
I would.
Yes.
I would.
And this gets back to the 11 best players in the NFL. So you just admitted there, and not even so tacitly, that you think that those three guys are better than Jackson, and yet you're convinced that Jackson needs to be on this list over Burrow.
But yes, like you did move the goalpost on me slightly, because like I understand the point is to win the game, but that's totally true. But best football player, I don't think it's the same exact criteria that we're talking about here. Best football player.
You used a criteria that was if you traded players off teams.
That's what's value. Like but at least now we're comparing quarterbacks. Like Joe Burrow, it's interesting that he's definitively a better football player than Lamar Jackson because of the playoff wins. Wins are not a quarterback stat.
Joe Burrow, hold on a second though. Every year is different. Mahomes threw a lot of interceptions and had wide receivers drop the ball. So he was taken out of the MVP discussion this year. Joe Burrow's last full season, statistically, was better than what Lamar Jackson did in winning the MVP this year. The MVP is a subjective award. If you just go by the numbers, Burrow's last full season is better than what Jackson just did, and he's a better postseason player.
He has undeniably been a better dude. Burrow was on my.
He scored 10 points and he completed 55% of his passes in a playoff game.
Terrible.
I have a hard time putting him on the list ahead of Burrow. That's all.
Okay, but we're doing this for this upcoming season. Like you're convinced.
No, this is where they are right. This is where they are right now because.
Well, right, I know, but you're convinced that Burrow's healthy.
Yes, I am. I said that in my.
Okay. Listen.
Presentation of him for this.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna say
we can put these four guys in for now. I'm not really in favor of Jackson, even though he won the MVP, but that's fine. We'll keep these four in, and then we'll bring everybody else up next.
All right. So and are we in agreement that these are the quarterbacks that we're going to consider?
Yes.
Okay. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. We're naming top 11 players in the NFL. There's a couple of asterisks that we might have to revisit as we go on. So you're going to have to listen to the entire thing a little bit more first in pod after this. All right, back in on first in pod. We're naming the top 11 players in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson are in. Pony had some pushback on Josh Allen and Lamar. I have some pushback on Burrow, but for now, those four are in.
Okay, there's no pushback. Let's just get these two guys out of the way, and I don't think we're even going to debate taking them off the list. We've got to put McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And we've got to put Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I thought that the next two most obvious ones were defensive players. But I'm in complete agreement on that. So I've got no problem with that. But so then I'll do the same exercise. Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons.
I will
Don't tell
except
me that you want
Parsons.
TJ Watt over Myles Garrett.
I will not let you put Myles Garrett on this list over TJ Watt. No, I
Dude,
can't.
did you see the year that Myles Garrett just had?
I did. Let's go through. Do you have a computer handy?
We're talking to each other on a computer.
Can you give me the numbers for Myles Garrett from, let's go through the most important games of the year. Let's do, I don't know, the last 5 regular season games, the push for the playoffs, and then the game against Houston with the do or die game against Houston.
Yes, I can pull that up, but while I'm pulling that up, best pass rush win rate in the NFL, best Pro Football Focus pass rush grade, 89 quarterback pressures, 15 sacks, defensive player of the year was Myles Garrett.
15 sacks. That is less than TJ Watt.
But it is more pressures. But all right, so you want Myles Garrett game log.
Last 5 and then playoff. What do we have?
Well, sir, Myles Garrett last 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 1 sack and 2, or I get, depending on how you count it, 2 tackles in the playoff game.
So total, he had 1 sack and 2 tackles.
Well, no, it was 2 tackles in the playoff game. It was just 1. No, he had. I mean, tackles. I can get. I mean, he had 8, 9. He had 9 regular season tackles in the last 5 games, then 3 in the playoff game. So that's 12 tackles, 1 sack. And I'm not counting assists. I'm just solo.
He had 1 sack in his last 6 games.
Correct.
And you still agree with him being defensive player of the year because of what PFF said?
Because of the overall nature of his season. And I mean,
what is the overall nature of his season? He had 15 sacks.
And 89 pressures and the highest pressure rate in the NFL. And he's done it consistently. As has TJ Watt, by the way.
Well, you didn't name TJ Watt. You said we have to do Garrett and we have to do Micah Parsons first.
Well, who had a better season last year?
Unequivocally, Watt. He had more sacks. He had more interceptions. He had more tackles for loss. I think he had more forced fumbles. He literally had more production at every meaningful stat than Garrett.
I mean, but so some of this is like there's rate stats now, right? So yes, he did have more counting stats, but the pass rush win rate stats and the pressure stats, like the stats, favored Garrett. Like so, some of the more analytical stats favored Garrett, and the counting stats favored Watt. I'm with you on that.
Okay. It's just we had this discussion. We had this discussion when the awards came out. It was just interesting for me. It was the first time I ever remember that one season award, we fell back on the analytical numbers in the subjective kind of data, digging deeper on things, pressures, which is subjective, and win rate, which is subjective. Someone's tracking those things and then trying to quantify it. We gave an award out for that, but we didn't do that at any other position. Lamar Jackson won the MVP award, not because PFF or Next Gen Stat said he was better than Josh Allen. He won the award because he was the best player on the best team in the NFL this season, which is how that award has been handed out really virtually forever. Yeah. The Defensive Player of the Year turned into, let's let the guys, and I like these people, and I use a lot of their numbers, but let's let them apparently now determine Defensive Player of the Year. So,
well, I mean, Cleveland. I agree with that. I think that I think Bosa had an awesome year. I think Garrett had an awesome year. I think Parsons had an awesome year. I think Watt had an awesome year. Cleveland won 11 games. Pittsburgh won 10. Small margins here. We are parsing greatness with these guys. I mean, do you want Watt in? I want Garrett in. Do you agree on Parsons?
I definitely agree on Parsons.
Okay.
But we're starting to run into a little bit of a logjam here, where if we do it this way, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
No, I understand. We're gonna have to take some people out, but let's get some cloud guys in here, and like, you know what I mean. We can make some tough choices. So, what if I said to you the name Trent Williams?
Definitely. I had him in bold type on this list that I have here. He didn't
Okay,
allow a sack the entire year. Now he did not have a great
second best run
Super Bowl.
block grade for tackles, and didn't allow a sack.
Yeah, I mean he was fun. The Super Bowl was hit or miss with penalties. Um, I didn't think he had a great playoff period, actually, as it turned out. But yeah, I still think he is the best left tackle in the NFL. Left tackles after quarterback and right there with wide receiver is the most important position on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, I've got no problem with putting him on this list. The other offensive tackle I wanted to run by you was Sewell.
Yeah, that's the only other one worth considering.
Even though he plays the right side.
Yeah, but it's not like he can't play left. That's, I think he'd probably be a left tackle on 25 teams. If not more. He's great. He's young. They paid him. He plays. He's a great pass blocker. He's a great run blocker. If this list was next 5 years, or tackle you'd want to start a franchise with, all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
he'd be the number one pick because of age. He just hasn't done it as long as Trent Williams has, obviously. So Sewell is definitely worth consideration. My guess is he will not crack our top 11, though.
Okay.
Given the other names here. Now, this, I think, might come down to personal preference. And we don't have to have a cornerback necessarily, but I think we probably should. Like, how do you want to parse Patrick Surtain and Sauce Gardner? Or fill in the blank third or fourth cornerback that you would suggest? Because I'd probably say Surtain, even though it was a weird year for him given how bad Denver was.
I don't think I'd put either on the list.
Really?
To be honest with you, I'd lean closer to Gardner from those two guys. The defensive back that I wanted to nominate is a safety. I wanted to run what?
Hamilton?
Well, I thought about him. I wanted to run Winfield by you.
Yeah.
Listen to this stat line for him this year. 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions. He did everything. He played down near the line of scrimmage and made plays. He didn't just get lucky and find the ball. He forced the ball out. He intercepted the ball. I think he was maybe 5th or 6th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. So the people that watched it closely this year and had a say in it, thought the same thing I'm saying here, that he was an impactful player, a guy that really won them games with key plays at certain times this year. So I thought about him. I think Hamilton's a guy to discuss, but I don't think we need a defensive back, because I don't know if anyone had the type of season in 2023 that made me feel like they're definitively or decisively one of the best players in the NFL in this cream of the crop situation.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have no problem with
and how about your boy Deron Bland? By the way,
I was just gonna say Deron Bland, 9 interceptions, 5 pick sixes. Probably, I mean, in terms if it on a 1-year sample, he deserves it, but I don't think he's a top 11 player in football, even if he obviously had a top 11 defensive season last year. He deserves to have his name mentioned here. Okay, well, so I don't know that we're going to come to any agreement there, and I do think it's very hard to parse these guys, and some guys play in different systems. What about, I mean, Aaron Donald has retired.
Yep, he's out now.
So if I said to you, we should have an interior defensive lineman, and we should talk about Dexter Lawrence and Chris Jones.
Yeah, I would put Chris Jones on this list. I think Lawrence is kind of an unsung guy. I
He's so good, though.
I forget about him a lot. Yeah, he is. But when I think about the building block players of the NFL and the faces of the league, I don't include him, and I do think of some of the offensive tackles that we talked about. The counting stats don't show up for him because he plays more of a old school kind of nose tackle where it's about eating up offensive linemen and creating opportunities for other guys to get the tackles for loss and the sacks and things like that. I do think he's elite at his job, but Chris Jones was productive in the regular season and then elevated his game to another level again in the playoffs. So I don't feel right, or I don't feel good about putting any defensive lineman ahead of him.
I have no listen, I put both those guys out there for a reason, right? I think that's I want to just be sure I pull it up here to say it correctly on Chris Jones, but I believe he led the league in pressures for defensive linemen last year. For interior defensive linemen.
He had 91 quarterback pressures last year.
Yeah, 91 quarterback pressures, more than any other interior defender in the NFL. So, I mean, and the body of work, the sample size of it. I think we're both a yes.
Yeah, I want him in.
Okay. So let's recap here quickly. We've got McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Trent Williams, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes as 7. With no defensive back and no other receiver at this point, correct?
Tyreek Hill is the only receiver. McCaffrey at running back.
I said no other. Yeah, no other receiver, right?
4 quarterbacks, those 2 guys. Williams makes it 7 offensive players. And then on defense, we have Parsons, Watt, Garrett, and Jones. We could stop the podcast and have 11 and be done, but there are other guys that I am interested in having a discussion about swapping them in and trading a guy out.
Well, I think I have one name that's definitively a top 11 player for me that we have not mentioned yet. So why don't we take another break and we'll throw some other names out there and then start seeing who we're going to take out or where we're at. But I'm going to campaign hard to take at least one guy out of that 11, but I'm not 100% sure yet. More first and pod after this. All right, welcome back. It's First and Pod. Danny Parkins, Andrew Fillipponi. Let's recap the exercise here. It is 11 best players in the NFL, the First and Pod 11. 4 quarterbacks: Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. 2 skill position players so far: Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Chris Jones. Who else?
Parsons, Watt, Garrett.
So that's 11. We got to have Justin Jefferson in this list, yes?
Yeah.
Nobody in their right mind.
I know, but here's the other thing I was going to bring up about. I know.
Say again?
I was going to say this. I think CeeDee Lamb has to come up in this too and be discussed. He led the league in catches. He had 12 touchdowns.
Listen,
he averaged over 100 yards per game receiving.
I love CeeDee Lamb. He's excellent. Do you think, because when I watched that team last year, as I know you did, there were so many times where it was like, man, they got smart because they just kept feeding the ball to their best player.
Mm-hmm.
Like they passed more than basically any team in the NFL. They were a high volume passing team. Their quarterback was healthy. Like, I don't want to, it's not like a Fred McGriff, he's a compiler argument. He's great. But I don't think there's a single general manager in the NFL that would take CeeDee Lamb over Justin Jefferson. And if you did swap those two guys out.
I agree. Even if you take the age component out of it, you're right about that. Jefferson would be the second best receiver after Tyreek Hill. And then CeeDee Lamb would probably, him or Amon-Ra St. Brown would likely be the next guy.
Well, like if you put Justin Jefferson in Dallas,
we're doing this thing again where guys are trading places like Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy.
Exactly what CeeDee Lamb did, if not more. Right? He's a better football player.
So who do you want to take off the list to accommodate Jefferson?
Well, it's tough because we're just not going to agree on the edge rushers. You're not letting me take Watt out, and I'm not letting you take Garrett out.
Correct.
And neither one of us want to take Parsons out.
Correct. So you want to take Jones out?
Let's put it this way. I'd rather have Justin Jefferson than Chris Jones on my football team.
Even so, take age out of it.
Yes. I think he impacts.
I can live with that.
I think he impacts it more. Like
I can live with that.
And he helps a quarterback more. That's why I wouldn't trade him if I was Minnesota, because it'll help JJ McCarthy. I can't. That guy, when he's healthy, is amazing. He gets open every play.
There's really only one guy that hasn't come up yet who I would put him on the list, but I can't talk you into taking a quarterback off the list, I don't think, to make room for this guy.
Well, it's like, listen, I'm willing. I know we have a small difference here on Burrow and Lamar, so we could take both off the list if we have other guys that were more definitive on.
I don't want to take Burrow off my list.
Oh, okay. Go on.
I don't want to put my name on something that doesn't have Burrow as one of the 11 best players. The guy that I'm thinking about here is Fred Warner.
Yep. I mean, an absolutely excellent football player. 11's a hard number, man.
I know. That's why I picked it. It's a starting unit, even though we're allowed to put guys all over the place. Bill Polian would put Lamar Jackson at wide receiver on this team. I
mean, listen, who in their right mind is going to argue against Fred Warner? I know last year
we have to here because we already have 11 slots filled.
Listen, last year he had an unusual number of missed tackles credited to him. He was not the highest graded off-ball linebacker if we're doing Pro Football Focus again.
Who was?
He was number 2, I believe.
Roquan?
Yeah, it was Roquan. Yeah, thank you. So, again, we're parsing greatness here. If we were doing career accomplishments, I'd be a yes, but I don't think so.
All right.
I don't think I'm taking Lamar Jackson off for Fred Warner.
Are you fine with no tight end? Are you fine with no Kelsey and no Kittle?
Yes. I am fine with that. I'm a little I think we're basically on it. What about Nick Bosa?
No. I think he got off to too slow
awesome in the Super Bowl.
I think he got off to too slow of a start last year.
Okay, but
and I don't want to have the same number of edge rushers on this list, pass rushers, as I do quarterbacks. So he's going to fall just short. I don't want to put him over Chris Jones.
Right.
And I would consider Max Crosby before I did Bosa. I liked Crosby last year more than I liked Bosa.
Yeah, it's weird because we want to, you give a lot of the edge to Burrow for his playoff performance, which is understandable, and we haven't seen Crosby. in that light, but Bosa is a pretty awesome big game player. Guy always shows up. All right, so let's recap.
So I think we got this. I think we have this list.
Right, I was just going to say, right? So Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Trent Williams.
No, we took Williams off.
We took Williams off.
Yep. And then you have Parsons, Watt, Garrett, Jones.
Okay, hold on a second. Chris Jones or Trent Williams? Because if I said to you, who's the best defensive lineman in the NFL?
I'm going to say Jones, dude.
But I understand that. But there is debate. And if I said who's the best left tackle in the NFL, you're saying Trent Williams.
Well, look, here's the thing about this debate, about a debate comment. Just because defensive tackle had Dexter Lawrence and last year Aaron Donald, so you've got three guys. I don't think Jones should be penalized because he's being debated against those guys. I don't think that, Djokovic should have been penalized when he was being debated against Federer and Nadal. There just happened to be three all-time great players all going at the same time. For whatever reason, there's not a lot of just Hall of Fame caliber left tackles in the NFL right now. I don't think so. Williams stands alone in that respect. Tunsil would be probably the other one. But
yeah, and guys who had that run, but Trent Williams seems to be ageless, right?
Yeah.
Tyron Smith and guys like that who were their peaks and their primes were incredible, but they're not aging. Jason Peters was still in the NFL until a year ago.
I'm just thinking of the pressures that Jones had in those playoff games against Buffalo and in the Super Bowl that just absolutely changed the outcome of those games. And haven't done it in back-to-back years. I just don't want to leave him off this list right now.
Okay.
And you're fine with that. You're cool with that.
Of course I am. Chris Jones is an incredible football player. We have no tackle. We have no offensive lineman. That doesn't feel right.
Well, because you needed to make sure that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen were on this list. But if you want to knock one of those guys off for Trent Williams, by all means.
You don't think Josh Allen's one of the 11 best players in football?
I told you he was a borderline guy for me. So I would say probably yes, but he's not a lock.
Okay. Well, I'm not willing to budge on Josh Allen.
All right. So then we have our list. It's fine.
And you're not willing to budge on TJ Watt.
No, we'll have our guy Spence make a nice graphic with the first in pod 11.
Okay.
And good luck in New York this week, Danny. And we'll talk next week, and we'll come up with some other creative, fresh way to keep this off-season podcast going and building this audience and having people tweet me like they did, telling me to shut the F up about Lamar Jackson the other day. So I'm guessing this podcast won't change that.
Probably not. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Thank you to Spencer Ray, our producer. Yeah, check me out on First Things First.
Woohoo!
On Thursday and Friday of this week, the end of May, the beginning of June, whenever those days are. Appreciate you. Peace.